Welcome to another project on djsundry.blogspot.com. I'm glad you've joined me today. I am working on a big project. It's a simple project. Unfortunately, I'm just mass producing it, so it's taking me quite a bit of time. I am making bookmarks. So we are going to go through the steps of this bookmark. It says up here, Western Days, Mountain View Baptist Church, August 20 and 21st, 2011. By the time this is posted, this will probably already be over. Sorry about that. But actually, I'm supposed to have this done in just a few hours. So what I did is I took a package of cream colored cardstock that I had, and I got out my computer and I found a font I liked. I chose the font, and I don't know how to say it, but it's spelled G-U-N-G-S-U-C-H-E. And for the top, the Western Days, I did it at 22 points. And then the church's name, I did it 18 points. And then 14 points on the date, because it wasn't as important. I set my page up in columns, so I could have 4 columns. Now, when you do that, for some reason, they're all just a little bit off. Now, I'm going to show you kind of a cheating way that I do my measuring. What I do is I pull out my paper cutter here, and I do this a lot when I'm card making and scrapbooking, because the inside of this channel is a distance that I like to use a lot. So rather than measuring everything, usually what I'll do is I will set that up by the channel, and I'll put the top of my letter at the top of the channel. If I want a little bit wider, I'll put it at a different place in the channel. But by doing that, then I'll do the same. I'll put my letter at about the same side when I turn the card the other direction, and again on the other side, the channel is the same distance apart. And what that allows me to do is I kind of have my margins all ready to go there, and they're pretty much the same all the way around. Now, this wouldn't work if you wanted separate margins, but it's just something that I really like to do. It saves me a little bit of time. So this blade's getting tired because I've already done almost 100 of these. We're having a big round pen demonstration and a chuck wagon dinner tonight. Now these, as I mentioned before, my margins, as the columns changed, the margins went down, so I needed to make a second cut. These are not perfectly, they're not going to be completely the same because of the way the shift was on the pages, but it will be pretty close. And let's move that over just a little bit more. So as I mentioned, I've done almost 100 of them. I've replaced the blade. It was getting dull at the beginning of the project just because it's a blade I've used quite a bit, but it looks like I didn't open a new package. I just got out another one. I did get this, my family got the school desks ready for the kids for school next week, or for me to start working on school next week. And so that freed up an old table that we had purchased from IKEA a year or two ago. And so I did have my daughter, while I was at work, change out the table for me. And it's really nice. I really like this table. It is a little bit smaller, but what I'm looking forward the most to using it for is for when I'm stamping. So now what I've got is I've got all these different sizes of papers, and this is where now I need to measure. These ended up being about 2 1/8 inches wide, and I wanted them to be 5 1/4 inches long. So I can go ahead and cut a couple of these at a time and get those going that way. So then when I cut the base card, the color that the base was going to be, which was in a darker brown, and that paper is by Recollections, but when I cut that one, what I did is I wanted it to be about 1/8 of an inch on either side and at the bottom, but I wanted a larger margin at the top because I wanted to be able to have room to punch my hole. So I cut these, and I just already have them done, at 2 5/8 inches wide by 6 inches tall. Now, if you do it right on your paper, I was able to get 5 from each sheet, so I could save a little bit of paper that way. Now, for this particular project, I plan to laminate it. So rather than using my ATG, I thought, you know, I do use it on part of the project, but I thought that it would be a good idea to just use up some of this old adhesive that I've had sitting around for years, because it doesn't have to be, because it's laminated, I'm not using a lot of adhesive. You could even use repositionable adhesive, because by the time it gets laminated, everything will stick well and you'll be done with it. So I just am using this old Herma adhesive that I've had around for years and years, and I'm putting those on my bookmark that way. So then for my Cricut cuts that I do in just a little bit that I'll show you, I went ahead and used my Xyron little 1.5 inch sticker maker. But what I did with that is I used, I don't know if I had mentioned it before on a different post, but when I went to open up a new package one time, I realized I had purchased some repositionable, and I don't ever use repositionable in that little 1.5 inch. So for this project, I could go ahead and do it. So here's the base and my printed part of my bookmark. And so now we're ready to move to the next step. So for this next step, what I did is I went to Just Because cards on my Cricut, and I went to page 65, and that is the boot. And I cut the boot and its layers at 2 inches. Now the boot has this little swirly, squiggly line that is very cool looking. Unfortunately, because it's a small enough project, it didn't cut real well. And so what I ended up doing is going back and just hand drawing in a squiggly line, because when I would remove it from the Cricut mat, it would go ahead and stick to the mat and it would rip and tear. It was just too detailed for that small of a cut. And so I decided not to use it. It also has a little spur here, and then it had a little strip, which I will show you as we assemble our other boot. I do have one that I wanted to assemble with you. So this is the base cut layer, and then this is the brown layer, and I'll just stick this extra square there. Again, I really don't care for these larger pieces how well it adheres, as long as it sticks together well enough for me to get through the laminator. So then we've got our brown layer, and this paper I believe is from the Paper Studio. It's got a little bit of a texture in it. So then I took the little black pieces that go along the sole of the boot, and I ran them through my little Xyron. Now because they were so tiny, it was taking forever to use a glue pen or something to do the heel of the boot. So instead what I decided to do is just grab a Sharpie marker, because it didn't matter if it was acid free or not, and just draw the heel of the boot. And honestly, you can't tell a huge difference, because the sole of the boot and the heel of the boot does borderline up to the black of the shadow layer, but I still felt like it looked better with it than if I left it out, and so I went ahead and put it on there, and like I said, I just drew that one in. Now I have this other Sharpie that's a fine point Sharpie, and I use that to kind of do the fancy detailing. I am not an artist, and I'm extremely exhausted right now, so nothing's looking perfect tonight, but I thought it just looked too plain without it, so I went ahead and put that in there. So you can see how quickly this project is coming together. Now for the next part, what I wanted to do is I wanted some ribbon, and so I had been at my Joann's recently, and I found some ribbon from Offray, and they had it in, I know I saw it in red and blue and green, and they may have had other colors as well, and it's this bandana looking ribbon. And I thought, well, that's kind of Western themed, so I would get some of that. So I purchased some blue and some red, and at this point I am going to use my ATG just because it's a little bit easier. And I'm just going to lay down a little bit of adhesive. I've already cut the ribbon to fit across. Now I am making 100 bookmarks. Each roll of ribbon has 9 feet on it, and I had pre-cut all of my ribbon, and as happens often when you're pre-cutting, as you're using one for a pattern, they get longer and longer, and so some of them I ended up with quite a few little snippets of waste, and because of that I ended up one ribbon short of having enough to do my 100 bookmarks. So I had to go back in my stash and find a ribbon just because it just looked too plain without it. Oh, that one's not straight, and you'll notice this one's not straight and it just comes right up. And again, I'm not worried about it being super strong because it will be gone over with the lamination. And so as long as it sticks well enough to get through the lamination, that's really all I'm concerned about at this point. So this, set the ATG gun aside. So this is what it looks like, and that one was just a hair too long. This was one of them that I had cut too long and ended up with waste. I figure I had enough for probably 2 or 3. If I hadn't wasted them, I would have had plenty of ribbon by purchasing 2 rolls. And honestly, I didn't really want to purchase too much of that because I believe each roll was, I don't know, maybe $2.99 a roll, and so I didn't want to purchase a lot of that. So, but $2.99 for 100, or $6 for 100, I didn't feel was too bad. So now what I'm going to do is grab my Xyron 900 machine. I've already set it up to do my lamination, so I've got the laminating cartridge in there and it's ready to go. This is 2-sided laminate, and you're going to see how simple it is to use that. Now I want to leave a little bit of space between each one, and it's about 9 inches wide, so I can get 3 of them, which means I will have the waste of 1, which I try very hard not to waste the lamination because these refill cartridges are a little bit more expensive. So I try to set up my job so that I'm doing as many of them as I can at a time, so that I have as little waste as possible. Now the nice thing with this, and if you've never seen this before, you can look on the blog and on Terrific Tools Tuesday and find a full tutorial about using the Xyron. But this little paper cutter comes right out, and I like that because I prefer not to get my other paper cutters all sticky, or even my scissors. Now I will have to use the scissors to some degree, but I really like not getting them all sticky, so I like to use this for just as much as I can. I don't use it as often as I do the others. It's not as good of a paper cutter as the one that you would use all the time, but it does a really good job on the stickiness, and I don't have to worry about it. And you can get replacement blades for this as well. So I'm just cutting these up, and I think it's almost going to be easy to use my scissors, which means I will be cleaning my scissors at some point, because by the time I get 100 of these cut out, they're going to be very sticky. So I'll just set that aside for now, and just pull this one here that only has one and get it cut very quickly. And we are almost done with this project for this video. Bookmarks are so fun, and there's so many things you can do with them. Again, we're giving these to people who come to our special Western days. We're going to have some old-fashioned games. I think I mentioned already we were having a Dutch oven chuck wagon dinner. We're going to have a round pin demonstration. We have a gentleman in our church who is a horse. He breaks horses as part of his means to make a living, and he does it in a very interesting way, and it's a very gentle way. And so then he has a gospel presentation with that. So that's part of our day tomorrow as well. So now I've got out my We Are Memory Keepers crocodile, and I'm going to cut a hole. I think I want the larger hole, the 3/16 inch hole, and I'm just looking to where I have that set. I don't want it quite that far, so let's just make an adjustment and just move this up. Maybe about 1/4 of an inch is about where I want it. It looks like about 1/4 of an inch there. Tighten that up. And now when I am doing this, I think I want a little bit bigger than that, maybe closer to 1/2 an inch. When I am doing this, when I'm going to go back and do all of them, with this crocodile, the nice thing is I can do probably 8 or 10 of them at a time, and so that will save me a lot of time. For now, I'm just doing the one, so I have it set at about the 1/2 inch mark here, and I'm just eyeballing it. It's not going to be a perfect cut. I probably am going to want actually a little bit less of a margin here. So I've punched a hole, and then I'm going to take, I have some toffee colored ribbon. I have some brown ribbon, and I really like the brown. But for this project, I didn't want the brown because it's too close to the brown, but not quite enough, not close enough to be perfect. So I'll just cut a little bit. Of course, these scissors are sticky. Let's get some different scissors. Just cut at an angle, a little bit of ribbon. Now, if you were making a bookmark like this, and you weren't making 100 of them, there's so many more things you could do to really add interest to it. You know, you can ink around the edges. You can maybe add some stickles or something to add a little bit of bling. But this, I'm just mass producing these, so I'm not able to do that right now. So what I did is I just folded my ribbon in half. I think I probably cut about 8 or 9 inches, but I folded it in half and I pushed the loop through the hole, and now I'm going to bring the ribbon back through the loop, and we have our bookmark. And I'll go back and trim it. We don't need that big of a ribbon there, and now I trimmed it a little bit too small. So this is our bookmark. So thanks for watching. Hope you're inspired to make bookmarks. This is a perfect time of year to make bookmarks. Maybe get your kids involved in making bookmarks for back to school to encourage them to read. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.